Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the On Time, On Target Morning Brief for Invest the Fighter Pilot Precision on a daily basis. Hopefully you had a fantastic weekend. We are going to cover today the vaccine stocks. So when you think back from, we talked about this maybe 6-8 months ago, when we started realizing that there's going to be more than one vaccine. Should you try to invest in one or all of them? Or, how do you want to play it, right? Because it's going to be a thing. Well, now we're starting to look at or hear news, and we kind of suspected this before, is that once you're vaccinated, does that last forever? Is it 3 months was kind of the shortest window I'd heard a rumor out there, and then 6 months is now being talked about, or does it go on to a schedule much like the flu shot where it's like an annual sort of thing? Well, if it's an annual sort of thing, is there an opportunity, is there an investable thesis there to make money, right? So I would say that with the flu shot having been an annual requirement for a long time, I'm not so sure, but I've taken a hard look this morning at all 5 names out there, of which I already have 3 that we're invested in across the book. None personally, it's not my exact cup of tea because I prefer tech and I prefer the long-term upside, but it's certainly a safe bet. Pfizer itself pays over 4% dividend. So if you're in retirement phase or living off your portfolio, that's a perfect stock to get that 4% above a return just in dividend alone, regardless of the appreciation in the stock. So that's what we're going to take a look at today. Other news, right? Controlled flight on Mars. That's a pretty big deal. So when you think of it from obviously there's some airplanes in the background, so kind of vested in that whole, cool aviation stories. Well, when you think of it, 1903 was our first controlled manned flight here on Earth, and now it's what? Quick math, 121 is, 118. You do the math. Years later, a little over 100 years, we are on Mars, and I know it's not a person there, but it's still controlled flight on Mars with a little helicopter. Pretty cool. They did take a little swath, according to a news story I saw, of the original Wright brothers flyer, a little bit of the cloth from it, and took it on that flight to kind of, acknowledge the history of how cool that is, that we're actually making controlled flight on Mars. So that's pretty cool. Also, huge shakeup in the sports world. Again, U.S. doesn't tend to be a soccer first sort of crowd. But catching on, certainly that in Austin here we have a major league team now, lost their first game. But hey, expansion team, not many expansion teams come out of the gate winning a whole bunch of games either. So worldwide, they're looking at an elite soccer league of 12 teams. That's going to hurt a ton of feelings across the board. So everybody's up in arms in Europe over that this morning. So yeah, those are some of the things we're going to talk about this morning. Excuse me. You can see over there in the chat window, we've got our theme and our question of the day as well. If you're catching us on replay, thank you so much for checking in. Make sure you hit subscribe and notification bell. If you want to join us live, there's a Q&A window, a chat window off to the side where folks can communicate with me and ask any questions on their mind. With that, let's go ahead and get started. All right, welcome back, everyone. Here's our lineup card for the day. Make sure you have your Q&A window and your chat window set up appropriately. I just refreshed the chat window with the longs and shorts of the day, so you can take a look at those if you're interested in doing any trading off of them, as well as what our question of the day is. All right, standard disclaimer applies. You have to do your own due diligence for acting upon anything you hear in this presentation. Full disclaimer information is available at ototnow.com. All right, welcome to Monday, April 19th. Still got that cough back now. Well, let's try it. Yep, this is not going to work. So let me kill this. Go back over here and view. There we go. Got it back and coming back to you. Technical difficulties right away on a Monday morning. Nope. Come on. There we go. We should be back. All right. Mission objectives: grow our money, protect our money, and live off our money here on a Monday, which I'm having issues with technology. So getting off on a rough start, but we're going to fix that starting right now. All right. Our tactical objectives out there. We're going to talk about vaccine stocks. As I said in the open, is it time to buy? Obviously, a lot of money is going to be flowing into these over the next year or several years, if that's the thesis. So I take a look at the individual names that you see down below, as well as there's a FBT is one of the many biotech type index funds that are out there. If you don't want individual stocks, there are options. FBT is one I use. I used to use IBB, but I like FBT a little bit better. Question today is, what's a backdoor Roth IRA? Again, as you start making more money in life, especially if you have a household where two of you are working, you can exceed the annual Roth limits, which for a couple are around that, just around that 200,000 level. Good problem to have. But if you make more than that, there are options to fund your Roth IRA, and that's what we're going to talk about. All right, our flow: long, short, open, short, long. We're talking a lot of market review. Go around the world. We'll talk about Bitcoin selling off hard this weekend. We'll come back to the States with a headline review. We did have some companies crushing earnings. Coca-Cola is probably the biggest one this morning. And then our long of the day is Harley-Davidson, ticker HOG, up big, forecasted to be up big as part of the, rats out of the cage, if you will, reopening of society. So that's a name. They're gapping up 6 or 7% on that news. All right. As far as long-term investments we talked about, we'll execute the open and then get to our question of the day. As far as contingencies and academic resources are standard. All right, let's take a look at Think Pipes. Here's our 4 screens that we have this morning. We have the SPY on the left. We have Hog Long, CLOV long, and Peloton short as far as setting up for your day trading, and we'll get back to that here in a minute. All right, as far as our S&P 500, you've seen the stairs here. Even though we did have one red candlestick, pretty much the market, each 5 of these ticks marks a week. So we're into the 4th week now of the market basically going straight up. So when folks are saying, hey, the market's going to sell off, yeah, one of these days they'll sell off hard. Exactly. And for no reason. It's not going to be a decision sort of moment, except for him holding some money off to the sideline, kind of waiting for it. So I would kind of wish he would hurry up and do it, to be honest, so I could put some money to work. But I've been patient with cash that's coming in, and kind of waiting for a reset. Overall, though, I think with the opening economy, the economy opening, I think we hold 400 now. And we were talking back in the election, do we hold 300, 320? We just blew through all that, right? So I think now we're holding 400, even if there are issues out there. So I'm not worried about the long-term market at all, if you will. All right. And if you look at indicators, which I don't talk about much, but down here you have the RSI up in the red, right? So when was it up in the red before? It was back up in the red here last August. And yeah, there's a pretty big sell-off. So we're kind of due for that sell-off, right? So that's why I'm being a little bit patient with new money that's flowing in out there. All right. Excuse me. Let's look at the last 5 days. Not of Lilly, but of the S&P 500. That's the last 20 days or so. Let's zoom in a little bit on the 5-day. So you can see pretty much a straight run up last week. Had a little hiccup on Wednesday or so, but then the futures are down and in the red. Not a whole lot, but a little bit in the red going into the open this morning. All right, let's take it over the headlines and take a look at CNBC.com. There we go. We'll refresh this. You can see the futures in the red there. Not a huge amount, but they are in the red and kind of trending down. So let's take a look at around the world. Europe is split. Asia in the green across the board, with China up 1.5%. That's pretty good. Let's see. China had a headline. I'll get to that in the headlines about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Here's our numbers from Friday. Everything was in the green. Bonds holding around that 1.6 marks, and people aren't really talking about that anymore. Oil still above our range of 40 to 60, but it's just kind of holding there. That's fine. Gold and silver sold off a little bit, not too worried about that. Crypto, though, it's showing in the green here, but look at where it is. So crypto trades every day, right? So even though it's the weekend, the stock market's closed, we aren't trading necessarily. You can Forex trade, you can crypto trade. There's a lot of things that you can become, I laughingly say a junkie, right? Because if you can sit there and trade on a Saturday night at, 10 o'clock at night, then you have the ability, you have the ability to become consumed by it, where it's nice to have the, if you will, the large professional markets only open during the day. And again, for a 6.5 hour period for the main portion. Yes, you can trade after hours, but keeps you out of staring at something and trading all day long. But you can see Bitcoin here up 1% off the lows, but 56, so it's down from where it was last week when it touched 65 there. All right, let's take a look at the headlines. You saw, I talked earlier about Coke beating earnings. Also, Harley-Davidson beat earnings and guided up. We'll see if there's a story with that. Gamestop back in the news. The CEO stepped down. George Sherman, they called him General Sherman. He's out of the helm now. Largely, Wall Street Bets is taking credit for running him out. I don't know if that's the case or not, but certainly the stock's jumping on the news. If you also saw Roaring Kitty raised his stake by, he had a bunch of options to the tune of several million. He exercised them and actually took the stock. So $12, I think, was his price point. So, pretty good when it's up at what, at 170 or whatever, crazy valuation, in my opinion. GameStop, again, now with a new CEO, we'll see who that is. And, I don't touch it. But again, like Kramer was saying earlier, about the only way for this thing to justify its valuation would be is if it goes into the crypto business. So I don't see them doing that, but maybe they will. I don't know. We shall see. All right, Tesla crash, killing two. Spring, Texas, no one was driving. Interestingly enough, if you read this article and then read the comments, it's interesting because they were in the car, right? But they were both in the back seat. You're not supposed to be in the back seat. You're supposed to be in the front seat. You're supposed to be at the controls when you're using the autopilot. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what comes out of the story. Could be insightful, if you will. Okay, let's see what we have here. There's that helicopter on Mars. Pretty cool. Wright brothers moment, if you will, like we talked about in the open. There's the European Soccer League, 12 soccer clubs, 6 from England. Again, that's going to hurt a lot of people's feelings. There will be some backlash there. I don't really know of a way to make, put in a tie an investable thesis to that, because that's what we're supposed to do here. But I will certainly listen, because there's lots of money behind these names. All right, Peloton had the horrible story of, I think it was, here I am blanking on the story, but I pulled up on another screen. But I think a small child was killed by a Peloton. So pulling that up now, but basically I'll get the exact article here in a second. Breaking news, Peloton, come on, where is it? Yeah, anyhow, there was an accident. I think it was a small child who was killed. Put it in the chat if you happen to know what I'm talking about. But yeah, Peloton put a warning out saying, hey, don't use your Peloton around, small children and or pets. Think of how many households have small children and or pets, right? A lot. Like huge. So the stock's kind of selling off of that news. And I think that after that news, and I think that is a great short opportunity for this morning. So that's going to be our top short out there. Okay, so let's see. Going back to, let's talk of all of the vaccine stocks. So you have Pfizer, you have BioNTech, which is ticker BNTX, you have Moderna. You have AstraZeneca, you have J&J, which obviously had some negative news recently with the blood clot thing. The stats are really pretty, 6 deaths is 6 deaths. Obviously, you want to empathize with that. But in relation to healthcare and, they said blood clots, more COVID-19 stats are higher as far as blood clots killing you, so therefore you'd be better off with the vaccine. And if you compare the numbers for the COVID vaccine to the numbers of the flu vaccine, it's about the same as far as how deadly it is in nutberry, right? But it does happen. So anyhow, a lot of negativity with J&J out there. But as far as I've looked at all of these, I think your best bet, again, I don't put my own money here. So I do have to say that because I'm not really a healthcare investor. The downside that I see with it, which I do not like at all, is the role of insurance and the pricing of this stuff, and they're constantly in the news. And if they really have to charge what they would really need to charge to recoup their, the R&D behind this, they can't really charge that. So you get all these negative headwinds to these stocks. Well, let's look at Pfizer here. The reason I like it, honestly, valuation, forward PE is of 13, so you could argue that it's cheap, and it's got a 4% dividend. So you are making, a percent a quarter, if you will, while you wait. So I don't really invest due to dividends, but since you're getting some dividend income rolling in, it can be, free cheese, if you will. There's J&J. How did I get to J&J? Which I don't like, so don't do that one, in my opinion. But back to Pfizer. From a price point, yeah, we'd rather have it at 34, but here it's at 38. It's still arguably cheap going into the long run. So I'm going to go take you over to Schwab real quick. We'll take a look at all six at one time. So you have Pfizer up here in the upper left. You can kind of see the dividend that it has, that it's paying every quarter. You saw the big dip, bounce up. So not a bad time to get into the stock. If you look at BioNTech, now you're not seeing a dividend. It's a foreign company, German, I believe, if I have that correct. Kind of bouncing off all-time highs. So not as attractive, right? Since it's already kind of run up. So I would stay away. If you have it, if you have these names, then just hold them. I have BNTX in the book. I also have Moderna in the book. Again, not as attractive. You don't see dividends here. All you do is, you see the stock closing in on its, most recent highs. Then you have AstraZeneca, really hasn't recovered. It does pay a dividend. Not a big name like the others. And then J&J, of course, has been hit recently with the negative news. But then again, J&J does have exposure to thousands of other products, right? So, and then FBT, the biotech names, they've run up, kind of come in. So if you want to hold it, for long term, I think that's not a bad play. But overall, my winner here in the space is Pfizer. If you want to pick up a position in that, you're probably going to hold it for a while. I don't really see a reason to sell as far as, when is the thesis over. Just buy it. It's kind of a buy and hold until you really get bored with it, or you find another opportunity where you kind of want something else with more upside. But if we do have the market sell-off, I think Pfizer holds its ground pretty well. All right, let's go over to TD Ameritrade ThinkPipe setup for the market open. Give me a second here. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the on-time, on-target play of the day. 4 screens in front of you on the TD Ameritrade ThinkPipes platform. The one on the left here is the S&P 500. This is a 1-minute chart. So you can see it's kind of trending down, and the futures are in the red. So again, that makes me think to look at the shorts first, since that's why I have this chart up here. Harley-Davidson is HOG. That's gapping up on earnings. CLOV is Clover Health. It's also gapping up. I did not see the headline, though. Here's the opening bell. Yeah, Peloton short off of that negative news with the child getting hurt, and the news release of don't use your Peloton if you're in a household with small children or pets, which is a lot of households, right? And I'm paraphrasing what that actually says. You can find out if you want, but it's certainly negative. Try to hop in here real quick. High of the day is up at, call it a $109. Stop would be 108. Would prefer to get it around the 108 level if it backs up here, but it may not. It may just fall off the cliff. Taking it here would be very aggressive. I'm inclined to, but every second that I'm talking, it's getting less attractive, right? So I'd rather have it up in the 108 range if we can get it. Looks like we may get it. So get ready to enter. Again, 108 even is what I'm looking for. That's actually down here. I was at the wrong one. So look at watching CLOV go higher there. It's got a lot of volume behind it. Again, I don't know the headline there. All right, there's 108. I'm going to take it short here at 108. Use your 109 all the way up here. It's $1, so the math is easy. We're going to go right here, even though it's not exactly where it is. So 109 as far as the stop, to get the stop in. And again, we're taking this short. Certainly the trade works against us the second I took it. So off to a rough start there. But we'll keep an eye on it. And there's 109, so we're out of the trade already. 30 seconds after we took it, if that. So All right, but you saw at least what I was looking for. Use the high of the day to set the 109, entry point $1 below that, and then took the trade. And then unfortunately, it went up and made a new high of the day. So we'll keep an eye on it. Remember, those of you that have done some trading, some actual real world trading on your own, that if you get back into a name, if you take a loss here, you go back and you trade this and you make your R back, that and unless you're a professional trader and a section 475 exemption, then you are going to end up owing taxes for that. Even though you didn't make any money, you made an R, you lost an R, but you still pay taxes on the R that you made, because wash sale keeps you out of the collecting that or being able to write off the loss. So all right, where are we in the real world? In the green here for first 3 minutes in the S&P 500. Everything's still slightly in the red across the board. Harley Davidson up 10%, kind of out of our window here, so not going to take that long. And then you saw the big spike in CLOV, millions of shares. So whatever's going on, there's a lot of people in this name this morning, and it's selling off. It was up over 10% and then selling off pretty significantly after that. All right, let's zoom out and take a look at the real world and see what's on the move here a few minutes into the day. We have Clickstream up 6%. Again, that's a penny stock. Revive Therapeutics, psychedelic. Roblox, let's just check that out. So again, you had the open last week, several weeks ago. It was Coinbase last week, but several weeks ago you had the open, went up to 83 or so, kind of down here in the mid 70s. So 64.50 was the opening price way back when, a few weeks ago. So everybody's up in that. So that's how a direct listing should operate, not exactly like how Coinbase is operating. If you're not in Roblox now, I would say don't necessarily buy more. Wait for that first earnings report. I think they're going to blow it out of the water, and I think the stock's going to scream higher. But that's an I think move. I don't know that. So if you don't have any, you can pick up some here. But if you have some or a bunch, just sit and wait. You have to wait for that first earnings report and then see what happens. I think if it's like everybody's anticipating, and again, you don't know until it's actually out. But if they have multiple revenue streams and all of them hit, which I think they all will, this stock could go ripping right over 100. So that's kind of what I expect with Roblox. If they miss earnings, I'm not selling, but I'm certainly going to see why they missed earnings and hear what the CEO says about their game plan moving forward. Okay, let's see some other names in the green. Not too. I was looking for some of there's Pfizer. I was looking for some of the vaccine names since we're talking about Pfizer up or a little bit. Again, you can take a look at. Let's pull the 5-day on Pfizer. So yeah, I don't think you're going to get better entry. If you're interested, just take some in this range. And again, you saw that pretty good floor there off of the larger chart we looked at earlier. All right, you do have GBTC down 8%. Remember, that's largely, even though Bitcoin's up, I put some air quotes out there. Today, that's only because it's up from yesterday, but over the weekend, it fell from 63, 64,000 all the way to 56,000 for Bitcoin. And again, GBTC tracks that. All right, here's your coin selling off 3.4%. So let's take a look at the last 5 days in coin. So don't even have 5 days, right? So here was the trading at 381, up to 430, down to 310. Yeah, right on the first day of trading. And really since there, it's kind of settled in to that 320 to 350 range. Tried to get above it, but now we're kind of in a range, really. So we may end up being in this range for a while. You don't know. If you don't have any, you can buy some here. If you have some, you can add. I've got my list where some folks still have some cash in the account where they said, hey, buy into coin for me. Don't know. Going to keep an eye on it here. I'm not in a hurry to plus up on it until I kind of figure out how this thing's going to act, right? It could continue to sell off. If you remember Palantir, you had 6 weeks where it was basically range bound around its opening price of $10 before it doubled, more than doubled from there. So it may take some consolidation here while it figures out a way to go higher. All right, let's go over to the question of the day. Everybody's pretty quiet this morning, so the Q&A window is empty. Same with the chat. Let's go over and talk about the Backdoor Roth IRA. So again, if you meet the normal income requirements, so if you're single, think it's like 140. If it's, I work mostly with married couples. That's why I didn't know those numbers a little better. Around just over $200,000. Just put money right in your Roth IRA. That's easy. Now, what happens when your income? So, if you make below, say, $206,000 as a couple, you can, you have options, right? You can either come back up here on camera. You can either fund your traditional IRA and get a tax break. Now you'll have to pay your taxes later on after it grows, several times over. That's why it's a good deal for the government. They give you a little bit of a break up front. But certainly when you get above that 206,000 level, now you don't have the opportunity to do that because you make too much. So your only real way to save on taxes is through your 401k. However, you can still put $6,000 a year into your Roth IRAs through this backdoor Roth IRA. So what happens in this case is you have to open, basically as a couple, 4 accounts, two traditional IRAs and then 2 Roth IRAs. And then as a couple, you fund their traditional IRAs. Again, it's a non-deductible funding. So say they're under 50, so it'd be $6,000 a year into the non-deductible IRA. And at that point, you immediately, within a few days or whatever, you don't invest that money. So cash goes in and it sits there. And then once the funds settle, you convert that to a Roth IRA. Now, whenever you convert, you owe taxes on the gains. So in this case, we're using this strategy, and the IRS calls it a backdoor Roth. So I mean, it's not like you're being sneaky or challenging the tax code. They acknowledge that it's okay to do this. The reason it's not a taxable event because there aren't any gains, and if there are, it'd be less than $1. So if you put it in on the last day of the month, yeah, you might get a penny or two in interest that pays out. So you do have a gain if you if you will. It's gonna be less than $1, so it's not gonna be taxable. So anyhow, that's the overall strategy. The only thing that really challenges this strategy is if you have a traditional IRA already, and in that case, you have a couple of options. You either don't do the Roth strategy because it's going to be a tax nightmare. And the reason that's a tax nightmare, say you have $100,000 in a traditional IRA and you add 6,000 of non-deductible contributions, and then you convert the 6,000. But you can't just convert the 6,000 that you put, these dollars. You're converting a percent of all of the dollars. So there's a math, you can get online and look at the math of that. So I basically say, don't do it. So either don't do the backdoor Roth IRA strategy if you have a traditional IRA, or the easiest thing is to convert all of it, pay the taxes now, and that way you're under the Roth clause for the rest of your life, which is what I've done. And I highly recommend that for folks out there. Just get to a Roth and you don't have to worry about it. And then, or you can take your IRA and roll it into your workplace 401k. If you're still working, of course. So that's a way to get a little bit fancier there. If you're gonna do something like that, talk to me before you pull that move, because there's some complicating. You want to make sure you do it right, is what I would say there. So that's enough on the backdoor Roth IRA. It doesn't keep that backdoor name. So as far as your account title, it's still just says Roth IRA. And if you've had a Roth IRA for years that you've put into, and then all of a sudden you make too much money, well, you don't need to retitle anything. It's just the mechanism of getting the funds in there. So remember, it's not a tax dodge. So that is all I've got for that. So with that, welcome to the week, and we'll see you guys back tomorrow. Bye.